I've been lately, historically, I used to do internet when that was a topic, but more recently I've been focusing on human augmentation, better hearing, better vision, our brains. But I'm going to talk about, Bambi asked me to talk about entrepreneurs' misses and mistakes. And I said, oh, that's too negative. Let me do some hits and some misses. So why don't I jump right in? Oops, if this works, great. And the first thing I like to say is that one of the big misses I see is people who try to follow all the advice they get. And I like to start any advice that I give by saying that. Because there's so many different ways of doing things. And if you try to follow all the advice, you're definitely going to be wrong because there's context and there's what personally works for you. I've hated when I tell an entrepreneur, why are you doing that? And I've had this happen to me. And they say, oh, you told me to. It's like, well, the context was different. The flip side is, and I have their logo there from Freedom Financial, a great company I'm on the board of, those guys take what works from what I tell them, throw away what doesn't work for them, and then make it their own. And I've seen them do that over and over again and go from the 3-person company to now a 1,200-person company just by always getting what works for them on the advice front. I'm going to move quickly because I realize I have less time than I thought I did. But in terms of a hit, I think a great hit is to focus less on the speed of execution and more on making sure you're going in the right direction and that you're executing well. At Silicon Valley, there's all this pressure, fast, 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 fast. Personally, over the last 20 years, I've seen very few companies that win because they were the fastest. More often they win because they were going in the right direction and they were executing very well. And Strava is an example of a company I'm on the board of that is really winning when it comes to a social network for athletes, particularly cyclists and runners. And it's been 6 or 7 years. And we were not the first one. We were not the most aggressive one. But the company really focused on understanding what our target customers wanted and then on executing it well. And now it's really paying off. So back to a miss. Believing everything you read in a blog, in a book, in a movie. I've been fortunate to have been involved with some high-profile companies where it was, when Twitter was being created, or at StumbleUpon, or Zappos, or Yahoo. And then I read the books, and I go like, what? And the reason why it's a very big miss to believe it is because I see entrepreneurs who then try to emulate it. They say, oh, let me do this the way the guys at Google did it early on, the way the guys at Yahoo did it early on. And the truth is, most often, the stories are just 20/20 hindsight, let's make this look good, as opposed to, one thing leads to the other, you get to first base, then you move to second base, and before you know it, things are going, you're improving your execution. So, yeah, big miss is to try to emulate some of the stories you read because they're often not the way that they're presented. Another great hit that I see are entrepreneurs that take risk. And let me expand this because this can be a little bit generic, if you will. Oh yeah, risk is good. Specifically Silicon Valley, and this is something that I got from Ali Partovi, a good friend and great angel investor, which is somebody asked him, what differentiates Silicon Valley? And he said, well, the way we hedge ourselves against risk is not by hedging our bets and doing 5 things at a time. It's because we know we have time and at a given time, we take one risk. And if it doesn't work, we do another thing. If it doesn't work, we do another one. Over time, we're hedging our bets. But in any given one moment, you're only doing one thing. And that works for joining a company that might not work, for launching a product. If you try to do too many things, it often doesn't work. If you go for it, if it doesn't work, you try again. And I use Flixster as an example of a company where I was working with Joe and Saran, the founders, and they were trying different things to determine what to do. And this is a big caveat. It's fine to try stuff before you commit it. You just cannot commit to more than one thing at a time. Once you figure out what you want to bet on, then you go for it. And this movie thing started working. And they were actually not that into movies, but it's like, look, this is working. We're going to go all in. And they built an amazing company with Flixster and then adding Rotten Tomatoes. Another miss is, and this is very costly, is I see so many entrepreneurs that take too long to part ways with people who are not working out, whether it's an employee or a co-founder or a consultant. It's just so hard they postpone it, and it only gets worse. And the flip side is I see plenty of entrepreneurs who, because of the pressure, they cut corners when hiring. So I have this somewhat controversial statement, which is you want to fire fast and hire slow. The moment it starts to feel like something's not working, it's not. I've never heard anyone tell me, oh, I shouldn't have let this person go, I shouldn't have parted ways. But so many times I hear, oh, why did I take so long? So that I see as one of the biggest misses. And in terms of not cutting corners, and by the way, it's fine to move quickly when you're hiring, but you just don't want to cut the corners. You just got to go through the right process, like the diligence is the one, and references. Incredible how many times people do it just to check the boxes and not to really get to the bottom of people. If you're going to take a risk with somebody, I'd much rather take a risk on someone who you feel has great talent and whose references and checks show great talent, but maybe he or she hasn't done what you need them to do before. So it's an experience risk as opposed to a talent risk. Maybe he or she is not good enough in terms of their capacities. That's not a risk that I want to take and that I see as a miss. Going back to a hit, get yourself more time. I put Returnly as an example of an early stage company I'm on the board of. Things were going well, and we wanted to hire faster than on plan. And I was talking with an entrepreneur, and he said, well, I want to make these extra hires. The problem is that's going to cut our runway. And so we're going to have to do our Series A sooner. We're only going to have 6 months. I hate that. I'm like, you never know. That feels like you don't have enough runway, but things are going great. Go back to the investors that did your previous round and try to extend the route. Get a little more money so that you have the time. And sure enough, he went back with, look, I want to hire more people, grow faster. We extended, that was a seed round, gave ourselves enough runway, the same runway as we had before without the extra hires. And I've seen that a few times as something that really works, always staying ahead and getting yourself more time. Now, that can only happen if things are going well. If things are not going so well, then I've seen the flip side also work, which is you scale back. You say, you know what, I'm going to cut back, even if it's painful, to give myself more time. Because if you don't do it soon enough, then it becomes doubly painful. I mean, if you can cut a few people when you then have 12 or 18 months, by the time you have 6 months, the cuts don't really help. A few things on the fundraising front that I've seen in terms of hits and misses. Too many entrepreneurs seem to focus too much on the pitch and on the deck, and not enough on who are they pitching to. And I like to use the analogy, I said this last year, of dating. It's sort of like you're trying to find a partner, dating, and instead of trying to find the person that has the right chemistry, the person who you're going to get along with, you focus on, am I taking her to a French or an Italian restaurant? Am I buying red or black or white wine? If there's no chemistry, it's not going to matter. And if there's chemistry, it's not going to matter for the opposite reason. And investors are the same. Entrepreneurs should spend much more time researching target investors to identify the ones that are most likely to be a fit, and less time maybe polishing presentations and what have you. And definitely I see too many entrepreneurs that focus too much on, let me check all the boxes, let me hit the right metrics, and not enough on, let's have something exciting for the particular investor that I'm targeting. Well, this space is awesome, it's beautiful, but it's a little tough because I don't see anything. All I see are lights, so, oh well. Did I pass 2 at a time? No, I'm good. Okay, I had two misses in a row. Uh-oh. When the investor's not excited, then, and I was just having a chat with Josh about this in the back. If the investor's not excited, most investors don't like to say, oh, I'm not excited, or give you the real reason, which might be that they don't personally like you or what have you. They want to keep their options open, say something that is friendly, so they'll give you an excuse. Like, you're a little too early, I want to see more traction here, I want to see more of this and more of that. And the mistake and the miss that I often see entrepreneurs do is they go chase that. Oh no, I'm going and focusing on this because one or more investors told me that that's what I need to get them to invest. That very rarely works. You go, you do that, you come back, and they're still probably not excited. You're still the same person, the business is still the same business. And unless things have really taken off, they're gonna give you another excuse. And then you go and you chase that. And that's a good way of running out of time, running out of options. So usually if an investor says no and gives you any reason, you pretty much just say, no is no, go focus on your business. Take your business to the next level. If you get traction, then they're gonna be likely to be excited. If not, nothing else is gonna matter. And obviously, to the extent that you move your business forward, you talk to the right investors. That's the way I've seen things work better. How am I doing? All right. The other thing in terms of that I've seen work really well is entrepreneurs that take control of the timing of their financings. And I know this is easier said than done, but you can do a lot. And I have the example here of Corner Shop. It's a great company I'm an investor in. And it's a tough one. I mean, Corner Shop is fun. It's doing grocery delivery in Latin America. And mostly Mexico and Chile. It's not the kind of company that you would think Silicon Valley investors would back. But by a combination of, I mean, it's an amazing company, and from a timing standpoint, the key thing that Oscar, the founder, did was created a forcing function. Once you have a forcing function, you can go to the investors or anyone who's interested, look, you have 2 or 3 weeks, or sometimes even 1 week, and I need an answer. And he landed Jackson Square Ventures, Accel, some of the best investors, and he did it really quickly. What I have found is that whether you give an investor 2 weeks or 2 months, the answer is going to be the same. But for you, knowing 2 weeks in is much better, obviously. So try to create a forcing function, even if it's a term sheet from not a great investor, not a great term sheet, that still helps you find out where you stand. And if that's the best you can do, then maybe you take it. If you do better, then that obviously helps. I see too many entrepreneurs who end up in this constant state of fundraising. I just don't think it works. I've seen so many entrepreneurs who take 1 week, 2 weeks, and get it done. Now, there might have been months that led to that efficiency, months of researching who to go to, months of execution, months of being in the right place to go do that. So I'm a much bigger fan of doing it quickly with a lot of prep work. Then the other thing that I've seen be really helpful for entrepreneurs is to know how to ask for help. And what I have found is Silicon Valley is just an awesome place in terms of supporting entrepreneurs. Me and most of the other investors that I know and entrepreneurs that have been through it and are frequently asked for advice, for help. And I think most of us try to be helpful. And the thing is, we're very busy. We have very little time. So when an entrepreneur comes to me and says, hey, Ariel, can you suggest an investor for me? Well, I could, but if that's all I get from this person, I need to go do some homework, find out, understand who is a potential investor. Are they a fit? Are they not a competitor or investor in a competitor? That's not efficient for me. That takes too much time. So if that's the way the person asks me for help, I'm unlikely to help them. But on the other hand, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, Ariel, here is a specific investor that I know is interested in my space because of what he tweeted or what she blogged or the other company she invested in, and I noticed that you are overlapped with him or her in this and that way. Here's an email that actually explains all of that you can just forward. So it takes me all of 20 seconds to forward that email, and usually that works. So this Silicon Valley is a lot about getting support and help and being in this network. And knowing how to leverage that is probably one of the most impactful things that I've seen entrepreneurs do well. I have a friend, Rick Fulop, that I use as an example, who dropped out of college and was doing this little startup. And by the way, he ended up starting A123 batteries, which went public. But this college dropout, he just did all his research on the space and the people. So whenever he was asking me or someone else for an intro for advice, that became value added. He would go and talk with the people, say at Sequoia, who ended up funding him, and they would feel like, oh my God, that was so valuable. So anyway, I think I'm out of time. Yes, time's up.
You are.
And thank you very much.
I think that, the coordinator, Ariel, that was great. Actually,
thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Great stuff.
All right, take care.